Hi, I'm Tina.
And I'm Rich.
If there's one thing we've learned in over 20 years of marriage,
It's that some days you'll feel like killing your wife.
and some days you'll feel like killing your husband.
Welcome to Love, Marry, Kill.
Hi, Rich.
Hi, Tina.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. How are we on the marriage meter today?
Oh, we're good.
We're good?
Yeah,
All
I think
right.
we're in really good shape. How are
Yeah.
we on your marriage meter today?
Good. I'm a little moody,
Mm.
but you're lovely. So it's all on me,
So that's not the marriage meter. That's the Tina meter.
I guess. But the Tina meter affects the marriage meter,
That's true.
as we all
There is a
know.
strong correlation between the two.
Yeah. The case we're going to talk about today is about a man named John Smith.
Oh, I know him.
I was just going to ask you, have you known a John Smith in your life?
Honestly, I don't think I have personally known anyone named John Smith.
Do you know anyone with the last name Smith?
I couldn't think of any off the top of my head, so I
Hmm.
took a quick break and checked
Yeah,
LinkedIn. I've worked with 4 people named Smith. I just forgot. They're like the name is so common that it
but
just
not a John Smith.
not a John Smith.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone I know currently with the last name Smith unless I go back to like high school.
Ah,
Well, the name John Smith is one of the most common in the English speaking world, though it has declined in recent decades. In the US, about 37,000 men share it, while in the UK, it remains among the top 3 names. Its ubiquity comes from pairing John, once a top boy's name, until the mid 1980s with Smith, the most common surname in both countries. So in the United States, the last name Smith is still the most popular.
mhm.
Almost 1% of the population is named Smith.
A lot of people. I'm not surprised that John Smith is declining though, because who would want to name your kid John if your last name was Smith? I
I
mean,
think the name John, I think it's a very
it's a
nice,
nice
solid
name,
name,
but
but definitely it's on the
yeah,
decline.
naming your kid John Smith is like sentencing him to a life of, basically just getting lost in the shuffle.
Well, if you are a criminal, that might be a good thing.
Oh, that's true. If you want your kid to grow up and be a criminal,
I'm just saying, if your name is John Smith, you might be able to get away with a crime or two.
good point.
What do you think are some other common last names? I have the top 10 last names in the United States.
Jones,
Yes?
Brown,
Yes? Very good.
that's all I got, I think. I don't know.
Johnson,
Johnson.
Williams, Garcia,
Oh,
Miller, Davis, Rodriguez, and Martinez.
okay, yeah, those should have all been obvious. I just couldn't come up with any more.
Your last name, we have different last names, is fairly common.
Fairly.
Yeah, mine is too.
Yeah,
We can keep those to ourselves because we're weird.
mine is probably more common in England. I'll just say that.
I think today people are being more creative with their kids' names. When we were in school, there were at least 6 Jennifers in every class
Hmm.
and 4 Lauras.
Mike, Tom.
Everyone was named Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think. I
Not
think
everyone was named Mike, but you know what I mean.
I think people are getting more original, but what happens is it's a cyclical thing. Somebody gets original and then that name becomes popular and then it's no longer original anymore. And then so it's like a cycle that just keeps going on and on.
True. I'm so sorry if my brain, I've already moved on to snack, and I really don't have any idea what you just said.
It's okay.
I'm sure it was really interesting.
I'm not sure I have any idea what I just said either. I'm just saying,
Sometimes you say something that like with such confidence,
yeah.
and you just lose me, and I'm like, was that word salad, or is my brain just not working? I'm
Basically,
sure
what
it's my
I'm
brain.
saying is people come up with a name that seems creative and original, but over time, that name isn't creative or original anymore because other people adopt it.
Oh, so you were like the first rich, and then everyone else copied.
No, I was on the tail end of the
Yeah,
riches. I will just
you
say,
were.
yeah.
All right, well, I did bring you a snack, and this is a snack that I've been wanting to make for you for a while. It's from Recipe 10 Eats. Remember when we did the case about Aaron Patterson and the mushrooms?
Yeah.
And we talked about Nagi from Recipe 10 Eats.
Okay.
And this is her recipe for peanut butter stuffed brownies.
Oh,
Do you want to give them a try?
yeah, they look really good.
Did you like the brownies?
Is there cream cheese in those?
No, not at
No,
all.
there's
Mm-mm.
not.
No,
Interesting.
it's just peanut butter.
I liked them, but there was like a weird, like sour flavor to the peanut butter that I
I,
thought was a little.
no, it's literally just peanut butter. I think you saw it in the freezer. You first take peanut butter and you melt it,
Hmm.
and then you put it in the pan.
Okay.
So it has the shape of your pan, and then
Hmm.
you take the peanut butter out, and then you bake the brownie, or you make the brownie mix. Then you put the frozen peanut butter up on
Okay.
top,
Hmm.
and then you put more brownie mix on top of that.
Interesting.
I'm a little disappointed in the recipe too. I thought, oh, you're gonna love it. I think part of it might be the recipe said use dark chocolate. It didn't say, how dark. And I
Oh,
feel like the chocolate might be a
maybe
little
that's what
dark.
it is. Yeah, because
And
I'm sensing just a little bitterness in there or something
I
that
think
is
that I
off-putting.
used chocolate that's a little too dark.
Interesting. It's not bad. I'm just it's not quite as good as something I would hope for with a chocolate peanut butter brownie type of
Yeah, I
thing.
almost used the Ghirardelli brownie mix and just put the peanut butter on that.
Hmm.
And I kind of wish I would have done that because I don't love the brownies, but
Yeah.
I think the peanut butter is pretty good.
Yeah.
I also put a layer of chocolate on top because I have a problem. I have a
Well,
problem. I'll
brownies
admit
without
it. That's my
frosting
first
or
step. Well, there's a family debate about that that I
really?
won't go into. Yeah, our kids don't like a
Oh,
frosted
they're
brownie.
so weird.
They really are. All right, are you ready to get to John Smith?
I am.
On Tuesday, April 22nd, 1980, along County Road 400 North in Newton County, Indiana, better known as Hopkins Park Road, construction crews were out making routine spring repairs. What they stumbled upon that day would be anything but routine. The road, about 40 miles south of Chicago, runs east to west and links western Indiana to eastern Illinois. The spring thaw had left the road in rough shape, with deep, muddy ditches on either side choked with spring's fresh growth mixed with last season's brush. Among the brush, one of the workers spotted a wooden box. It appeared to be homemade, constructed crudely from plywood and nails hastily hammered into place. The box was about 4 feet long and 2 feet wide. They carried the box to their work truck and pried it open with a crowbar. An unpleasant odor met their nostrils as they lifted the lid. Inside was a dirty green blanket, possibly an army blanket. Under it was a pair of jeans and a plaid flannel shirt. Sam Kennedy poked around the box with the crowbar, afraid to touch anything. He jumped back in shock and horror when he uncovered a human skull. The men called law enforcement, who came and took possession of the box from the rattled road workers. The coroner drove the box to the funeral home that he worked out of. The box had several items of women's clothing inside, including a pair of bell-bottom jeans, a turquoise peasant blouse, 2 nightgowns, a bright red dress, a multicolored dress with puffy sleeves, a blue dress, a black and white dress, a striped shirt, a plaid skirt, a blue Western-style shirt, a bathrobe, and several bras. There was also a pair of blue jeans with a smiling mushroom patch on the crotch. Nearly all the items were size small. 2 rings, a gold crucifix on a chain, and strands of brownish hair were also in the box, as well as the rest of the skeletal remains. The bones appeared to be from a small framed woman in her 20s. Disturbingly, the leg bones had been severed by a saw. The feet were missing. An anthropologist later analyzed the bones and determined the young woman had never borne a child and might have been Hispanic. The media coined the Jane Doe the lady in the box. Nearby police were contacted to see if someone fitting the description of the Jane Doe was missing from their communities. Local officials in Newton County buried the remains in a child-sized coffin and marked the grave with a simple marker that read, Jane Doe, 1980. When flowers began appearing regularly on the grave, police decided to stake out the grave, but they soon learned that the culprit was a thoughtful local woman who felt badly for the Jane Doe. It would be decades before her identity was revealed.
When you were describing the road workers finding her body, I could just put myself in that position of finding this box and starting to open it and the smell is emanating. That would be just so like terrifying. I don't know. It's just so like creepy to not know
Oh,
what you're about to
absolutely.
open
And
up. And
just really sad.
yeah,
I think that would stick with you and probably give you nightmares.
yeah,
And
for sure.
On Labor Day weekend in 1991, Fran and John Smith checked into the Strickland's Mountain Inn for a belated honeymoon. Fran, or Betty Fran Gladden-Smith, 48, and her 4th husband, John David Smith III, 40, had married barefoot on a Florida beach the year before. Recently, they'd settled in West Windsor, New Jersey, near Princeton, for John's new job. Their marriage had been off to a rocky start, and they hoped a weekend at the Poconos-themed motel might rekindle their bond. Instead, disaster struck. Fran slipped on the slick tile after stepping out of the motel's red heart-shaped tub, shattering her hip and landing her in the hospital, where surgery and a metal pin left her bedridden for weeks. The forced downtime gave Fran too much time to think and to regret. She couldn't bring herself to admit it to her daughter or her sister, but deep down, she knew that she had made a terrible mistake marrying John.
Quick check-in on timeline here. So this is 1991. The Jane Doe's body was found in 1980. We're 11 years.
Yeah, why do you think those two things were related?
I don't know. I have a feeling.
Betty Fran Gladden was born in August 1942 in Alabama. She grew up on military bases in a close-knit family. She and her sister Sherry were very close. They shared a kind of sixth sense, an unspoken connection that told them when the other was in trouble or needed help. They called it the thing. Fran was petite and blonde and did some modeling when she was younger. She was shy but had a warm and bubbly personality. After her second marriage ended in 1981, she was single for almost 10 years, focusing on her children. I had several sources for this case, and they were unclear on her husbands. I don't have a lot of background information on Fran, but I believe she had 4 husbands, John, Rich, Bill, and another John. John Smith was her 4th husband.
Okay.
Her sister said in her book that she married one of them twice, but she didn't say which one.
Okay.
Fran had 3 children, Todd, Rod, and Deanna, or Dee Dee. Dee Dee Wheeling was 26, a single mother with 2 young children, and she lived in Houston. Much of Fran's family lived in Niceville, Florida, in the Panhandle, 30 miles east of Pensacola. In 1989, Rod, an Army Ranger, was seriously wounded in Panama during an operation to extract Manuel Noriega from office. Soon, Fran found herself as caregiver for her ill mother, her 83-year-old grandmother, and her injured son. Her granddaughter, Nikki, was also living with her for a year. Fran had a lot on her plate. She also worked at Chrome Alloy Technologies as an executive assistant when she met her 4th husband, John David Smith. John was a lifelong Mennonite and contract engineer at the company. He was socially awkward, prone to an overly broad, gummy smile, and talking too loudly, eager for approval. Lacking confidence, he often overdressed in colorful suits and ties, regardless of the occasion. While some dismissed him as an odd duck, Fran found his quirks endearing. She really didn't know much about John's family or childhood. He was very private about his past. She hoped with time he would open up to her. After just 2 months of dating, John proposed, and Fran accepted. They built a custom home next door to Fran's mother, and with John earning a good salary, he encouraged Fran to quit her job to focus on her family. Hesitant to give up her income and independence, she eventually agreed.
A proposal 2 months into the relationship. That's pretty quick.
It is, and you would think when you're on your 4th marriage or 5th marriage that you might be a little more cautious and take your time.
Yeah, I would think so.
But I think John was very convincing and charming. Some people describe John as looking like Howdy Doody, and others call him John Boy Walton.
Oh, okay.
Did you ever watch the Waltons when you were a very young child?
I loved the Waltons.
I am going to show you a picture of him really quick, and then I'm going to ask you to describe it. Of course, we will post these pictures on our social media.
I do see a little John Boy Walton resemblance, but his eyes are crazy eyes.
Yes, they are. And in a lot of pictures, he's wearing the serial killer glasses that,
like Jeffrey Dahmer glasses?
Exactly.
Oh, boy. John David Smith III was born on April 2nd, 1951 in Homerville, Ohio, to Grace Cheney and Carl Smith, who married soon after his birth. His brother Michael was born 3 years later, but the Smiths' marriage didn't last. Grace filed for divorce on the grounds of gross neglect of duty and extreme cruelty. After the divorce, Grace, John, and Michael moved in with her parents, Ethel and Chester Cheney, in Seville, Ohio. Seville is a small village in Medina County, about 40 miles south of Cleveland. Known for its quiet, rural charm, Seville has a historic downtown with shops and restaurants, and is surrounded by farmland and rolling countryside. Seville, Ohio is perhaps most famous as the one-time home of Martin and Anna Bates, known as the Seville Giants. The couple gained international fame in the 19th century as the world's tallest married couple, with Martin standing 7 feet 9 inches tall and Anna 7 feet 11 inches. Sounds like they were made for each other. Anna became pregnant twice, both resulting in tragic outcomes. Their first, a daughter, was stillborn, weighing 18 pounds. Their second child, a son, weighed over 20 pounds and measured nearly 2 feet long at birth, but he survived for only a few hours. Well, that's very sad.
Sorry, that was very superfluous, but I just thought that was really interesting how these two giants were married to each other. They must have had a really high ceiling. I hope they had high ceilings on their
I hope
house.
so too. Grace bought a house 2 doors down from her parents, who helped raise John and Michael. Chester owned and operated a Marathon gas station that sat behind their house, across the street from the town's funeral home. More than just a place to fill up, the station became a local gathering spot where neighbors traded stories and town gossip. Chester spent a lot of time with his grandsons, taking them fishing, hunting, or watching sports. Neighbor and owner of the funeral home, Richard Armstrong, said of the Cheneys, "John and Michael were practically raised by their grandparents. The Cheneys were good people, pillars of the community. John was tall, gangly, and pale, freckled with a shock of red hair that looked as if it had been cut around a bowl. Bright and considered the favored child, he excelled in school and on the track, where he proved himself a strong runner, winning many medals. When John and Michael were teenagers, their mother Grace married wealthy real estate developer Sam Malls. Preoccupied with work, Sam had little impact on the boys' lives. Grace and Sam later welcomed a son of their own, Stephen."
Sam was Jewish, and I read one account that said that Grace was disowned after she married him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
When John turned 16, he bought a leather jacket and a motorcycle, but neither made him any cooler. At 19, John met Janice Hartman from the nearby town of Doylestown. Janice was the third of 4 children born to Betty and Neil Hartman on March 2, 1951. 10 years later, her youngest sister arrived, but by then her parents' marriage was unraveling, and they soon divorced. Janice was a bit of a tomboy with a rebellious streak. Had she gone to the same schools as John, she might never have noticed the nerdy boy. Years later, when asked why she got involved with him, she simply said, "Beats the heck out of me. I guess it was the motorcycle." So apparently it did make him a little cooler.
Right, it did. But my point was, had she known him in high school, she would have been like, "No, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not very nice to John in this case."
After high school, Janice left for St. Louis to attend flight attendant training, while John enrolled at Ohio State University to study engineering. Just a few weeks later, unable to stay apart, they eloped in Detroit and were married at City Hall. Janice's parents had never even met John. Eventually, when Betty, Janice's mother, met John, she said, "He did talk a lot. He liked to hear himself talk. He was the biggest bullshitter you ever saw. He was going to build bridges. He had it all planned out." Grace was furious over her son's impulsive marriage. She locked him out of her house and refused to give him his belongings. Both of their families believed the couple was too young to be married and were throwing their futures away. Undeterred, Janice and John moved to Columbus, where John continued his studies while Janice worked as manager of a gas station. But cracks soon appeared in the marriage. John was controlling and prone to angry outbursts, while Janice was the only one earning money, leading to frequent clashes. Their relationship deteriorated further when John's anger turned into physical abuse. Janice hit back at John, but his strength and size left her at a disadvantage. She was covered with bruises and scrapes. The abuse became so commonplace, John didn't try to hide it and thought nothing of slapping Janice across the face in front of friends and family. In 1971, John dropped out of Ohio State University before earning his degree. Janice confided to her mother that John once threatened her, "If you ever leave me, I'm going to kill you." In August 1974, Janice separated from John and moved into her father's mobile home behind a bar in Doylestown. Relishing her independence, she bought a Mustang that she treasured, took a job as a go-go dancer, and even began working undercover for police on drug cases.
I could not confirm that fact. The police never confirmed it, but it was in several articles and the books I read, it was said that she worked as an undercover informant.
Okay. But Janice's new life carried risks. On November 10th, 1974, while visiting a friend's house, she was brutally attacked by a group of 5 men. One threw her to the floor, tore off her clothes, and dragged her into a bedroom, telling her that, quote, "bitches like you don't deserve to live." Several others held her down, striking her as they tried to assault her. At one point, a blond man entered with a loaded shotgun, pressed it toward her, and said, quote, "Narcs always have an easy way out." Another voice shouted not to kill her, and eventually the men released her. Bruised and scratched, Janice went straight to the police to report the attack, suspecting it was retribution because her undercover work had been exposed. That's a terrifying story.
Yeah, Janice sounds like she was very scrappy and tough, and she was small. So she tried to fight back.
Yeah.
But, 5 men were attacking her.
Yeah, she's fortunate she survived that, it sounds
Yeah.
like. A few days later, on November 14th, her divorce from John was finalized. With no children or significant assets to divide, the process moved quickly. Their split was described as amicable, with no signs of lingering hostility between them. Without Janice's financial support, John dropped out of Ohio State University and moved into a mobile home in Wooster. Adrift with too much time on his hands, he began stalking her, but their relationship was confusing. Sometimes they still spent time together amicably, and sometimes Jan wanted nothing to do with him. We'll be back after a break.
When Betty Fran and John got married, he never told her about his first wife. 9 months into the marriage, on February 5th, 1991, after John left for work, a sheriff's deputy rang Fran's doorbell and handed her divorce papers. She was gobsmacked. When she confronted John, he said it was a big mistake, pleaded with her to forgive him, and withdrew the petition.
How do you accidentally have divorce papers served?
I don't know.
Okay.
Soon after, John lost his job at Chrome Alloy. He wasn't able to find work in Florida and was forced to take a job in New Jersey, working for a company called Carborundum as a manufacturing manager. Fran didn't want to leave her family behind in Florida, and moving even farther away from her daughter and grandchildren in Houston weighed heavily on her. Still, she couldn't bear the thought of facing a 4th divorce, so to New Jersey she went. They moved into a furnished condo, and John put the rest of their furniture into storage. A year into their marriage, Fran was surprised to discover that John owned a house in Connecticut. He said his sister Kathy lived there rent-free while caring for his 2 border collies, Amanda and Christopher. Until then, Fran hadn't known that John had 2 dogs or a sister. Do you remember me talking about John having a sister?
I don't.
Because he didn't. So Fran wanted to meet Kathy and see the beach house and meet the dogs, but John hedged, making that meeting happen. He was often away, tied up with frequent travel and long weekends at his new job.
So John's full of secrets, I guess.
He sure is. In August 1991, Fran returned home to their condo to find that John had secretly moved out and left her with only $50 to her name. She had no access to their bank accounts or even a credit card. He took their radio and TV and all of his possessions. Fran thought he was gone for good. She called her daughter Dee Dee, sobbing. John left a note. When you decide to start wearing your wedding band again, I'll come home. The diamond in her ring was loose, and she didn't even think about mentioning it to John because he wasn't around a lot. So she took it to the jewelry store to, have them tighten the
So he
the
noticed
diamond.
that she wasn't wearing it.
Yeah, instead of having a conversation, he's like, well, I'm leaving.
Wow.
A few days later, Fran called his office, and he acted as if nothing was wrong. He answered the phone. Oh, hi, honey, it's good to hear from you. And she was like, what's going on, John? He explained that he'd been sleeping in his car and just needed some time on his own. When he returned home, Fran told him things needed to change. He needed to be more open with her if their marriage was going to continue, and he needed to tell her about his past, and she insisted that he give her access to their bank accounts. After Fran broke her hip, she sank into depression. Normally outgoing and social, Fran hadn't yet built a circle of friends in New Jersey, where she and John had only been living for 4 months. Their condo was on the 3rd floor, with no elevator in the building, leaving Fran stuck inside, relying on crutches or a walker to move around. She hated being housebound. With John working long hours and rarely able to take her out, Fran felt increasingly isolated and alone. I think she was in a great deal of pain, too.
Yeah, I'm sure she was.
Dee Dee hated to see her mother so unhappy. Although Fran was still in a cumbersome cast, she got her sewing machine out to pass the time. Determined to make their condo cozy, she sewed a dust ruffle for her bed and curtains. During one of their daily calls, Fran asked Dee Dee to send her some patterns so she could start sewing clothes for her grandchildren. The last conversation they had was on September 28th. After her calls went unanswered for several days, Dee Dee began to worry. John wasn't answering his phone at work either. Desperate, she called Fran's doctor to see if she'd made it to the office for her appointment that week. She had not, the receptionist told Dee Dee. In a full panic, Dee Dee called John at work on Wednesday, October 2nd, and this time he finally answered. "Where's my mother, John?" she asked. "I thought she was with you. I came home to a note on Tuesday that said, 'Feed the fish. I'll be back in a couple of days.' And she talked about coming to visit you and your brother in Florida, so I thought she had come to see you." Dee Dee asked John for the note, but he said he'd thrown it in the trash. Dee Dee knew it was impossible for Fran to travel with her broken hip, but John didn't seem the least bit concerned. Dread settled into her gut. She knew John was lying, but why? Dee Dee called her Aunt Sherry, and together they came up with a plan. Sherry Gladden-Davis, living in Indiana, and Dee Dee in Houston, didn't have much money for unnecessary travel, but they were desperate to find Fran. They urged John to file a missing persons report, yet he seemed largely unconcerned. By Friday, 3 days after Fran had vanished, the women threatened to come to New Jersey themselves, and only then did John go to the West Windsor Township police station to submit a report. John arrived at 10 p.m. Officer Tom Moody took down the report, but it was the young officer, Robert Hilland, who couldn't shake him. When their eyes met across the station, Hilland saw something chilling in John's cold, vacant stare. Decades later, that haunting memory would come full circle when Hilland and Smith faced off once again. That's called foreshadowing, Rich.
Oh, I see. Very well done.
Asked for a picture of his wife, he said that he didn't have any because Fran was camera shy. This was not at all true. Fran used to model, and she loved having her picture taken. John admitted that he wasn't sure how Fran was getting around with a broken hip and limited money. Initially, he said that she only had $200 with her, but later he increased the amount to $2,000. Fran had her own car, but she left it behind. She must have taken the bus, Smith claimed. He was sure that she was visiting her family, but Sherry and Dee Dee assured the police that she was not with them. Fran's beloved mother was in the ICU on a ventilator, struggling with emphysema, unable to talk. Every breath was a battle, and Fran's family knew that she would never disappear without contact during such a critical time. Fran's mother could only communicate by using a chalkboard. She wrote her daughter's name over and over, her eyes pleading with her family for more information. She died soon after at age 65 without knowing what happened to Fran.
So sad.
It is really sad. Detective Michael Dansbury was assigned to Fran's case. A week after her disappearance, he visited John at his condo, and John hesitantly invited him inside. Dansbury found the condo tidy and nicely furnished, but was immediately on alert when he saw Fran's walker. John assured the officer that he and Fran had a happy marriage. He wasn't sure where she went, but he thought she'd gone to visit friends or family. The only items missing were her purse, a yellow suitcase, two two-piece jogging outfits, and Fran's crutches. Officer Dansbury checked with bus drivers, taxi service, and even airlines to see if Fran had purchased a ticket, but the search came up empty. And surely, like Fran, with crutches, was having a hard time getting around.
Right. I think people would remember seeing her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dee Dee and Sherry created and dispersed missing persons flyers with the following information. Betty Fran Smith, missing person notification, born 8/4/42, age at time of disappearance 49, female 5'2", 100 pounds, blonde, medium-length hair, blue eyes, white, light complexioned, identifying marks, a scar on her left knee, scar from hysterectomy, pin in right hip, no bone in little toe of right foot. Front teeth are temporary caps and slightly yellowed, also known as Fran. Circumstances of disappearance unknown. Missing October 1st, 1991 from Princeton, New Jersey. John refused to help distribute the flyers. Beyond filing the missing persons report, he hadn't lifted a finger to search for Fran and showed no sense of urgency or alarm in finding her.
On October 16th, Officer Dansbury returned to John's condo to further question him. This time, John was more open about his past, admitting that he had been married once before Fran to a woman named Janice Hartman in 1969. They had separated amicably a few years later when Janice left him to join a commune in Florida, he explained. Dansbury wasn't willing to let the case go. His 20-plus years as a police officer led him to trust his intuition that something was amiss with John. I frankly don't think this would require a lot of intuition. I think it seems fairly obvious that something is amiss, but
Oh, does it, Detective Rich?
but maybe that's hindsight. He interviewed John's boss and coworkers and found that John hadn't told anyone that Fran was missing. On December 3rd, 1991, John agreed to take a polygraph test. Although the results weren't revealed publicly, John told Dee Dee that he had failed miserably. After the polygraph, investigators narrowed their focus on John and requested that he come to the station for a formal interview. He was read his rights and declined to have an attorney present. The investigators learned that John had filed for divorce from Fran the previous year, which he'd failed to divulge. When confronted about the house he owned in Connecticut, he claimed it was rented by a woman named Kathy, not his sister, who he had known for 7 to 8 years. Detectives with the local police department visited the house at 23 Point Beach Drive in Milford, Connecticut. Tax records confirmed that John David Smith owned the beachfront home, purchased in 1986 for $232,000. No one was home, but neighbors filled the officers in. The occupant of the beach house was a dark-haired woman named Sheila Sauter. She had lived there for about 5 years and was frequently visited on weekends by a red-haired man. Detective Dansbury, along with Detective Frank Barr from Milford, Connecticut, knocked on Sheila's door with her sister and brother-in-law in tow in early January 1992.
So they hadn't been able to get a hold of Sheila, and I think they knew that what they were going to tell her was going to rock her world. So they had found her sister and brother-in-law and had them along to be there for her as they questioned her.
Gotcha. Sheila was confused why they were all there, but soon she understood that her whole world was about to fall apart. The officers told her that they were there to investigate the disappearance of John Smith's wife, Betty Fran Gladden-Smith. Sheila told them that she was John's girlfriend. On his last weekend visit on December 18th, as he was leaving, he casually said, "By the way, I'm married and my wife is missing." This guy
Can you imagine? Poor Sheila.
No, I can't imagine. This guy is just so strange.
He's very odd.
Sheila and John had been together for 8 years. They met in 1983 when John applied for a job at Avco Lycoming, where Sheila was the HR manager. She knew that he was divorced from his first wife and had even met his family, his mother, Grace, brother Michael, and grandparents, Chester and Ethel Cheney. They bought the house together and adopted the 2 dogs. John had moved to Florida for work, but Sheila stayed behind. John visited when he could. Between September and the last time she had seen him right before Christmas, he had visited almost every weekend. The police asked if she would help them with their investigation, and she agreed tentatively.
So remember that Fran was alone a lot on the weekends, and John said that he was working while he was actually in Connecticut with Sheila.
It's just crazy. I mean, he led a double life for a long time, it sounds like.
Well, and hopefully you've gotten a sense, too, that John moved around a lot.
Yeah.
He was in these jobs, and he was constantly working at new jobs.
Okay. By February 1992, with no new leads and little information to go on, Dee Dee and Sherry traveled to New Jersey. They stayed with John. While John was at work, they searched his condo for evidence. They found that Fran's closet and drawers were still filled to the brim. She took very few, if any, of her possessions with her, and Fran loved her clothing, shoe, and jewelry collections. There were also expensive family heirlooms left behind. It didn't make any sense to Dee Dee and her aunt. It was also odd that John had very few possessions in the house and almost no food. When they found a blue comb in Fran's car, their worry turned to panic. While it seems like a trivial detail, she loved the comb and never left home without it. Searching through a storage closet, the women found one more startling thing, a yellow suitcase.
Remember, John said that she had taken a yellow suitcase with her.
Right. They brought their findings and accounts of John's suspicious behavior to the police, convinced that he had done something to Fran, but officers told them there wasn't enough evidence to press charges. They were just as frustrated as the women. Devastated yet resolute, Dee Dee and Sherry returned home, determined to uncover the truth and to make sure that John paid. They called John every day for a year and asked him where Fran was. Sherry was relentless. Over the years, John moved states and jobs often, and each time she found him. She told Dateline that she wrote letters to each new workplace, tucking a missing flyer of Fran inside. She wrote the letters not to HR. That's a waste, Sherry said. You write to the receptionist. She knows everything. She tells everything.
As a former receptionist.
That's very true, isn't it? I love a good story of a tenacious family member who is not going to give up and does whatever they can.
You're going to make me emotional, but these two are
Yeah.
just hats off to them. They're amazing.
Sherry honed in on one fact that she knew about John, that he was from Ohio and had married a woman named Janice Hartman in the 1970s in Detroit. She called information and began dialing every Hartman with a 216 area code, asking if they had a relative named Janice. After several days and hundreds of dollars later, a man named Gary Hartman in Wadsworth, Ohio, said that he had a sister named Janice who had married a man named John Smith from Seville, Ohio in 1969, and they later divorced in November of 1974, 3 days before Janice disappeared. When Sherry asked Gary how they could get in touch with Janice, his answer nearly knocked the breath from her. He explained that Janice had vanished days after her divorce from John was final. Sherry almost dropped the phone. Her mind raced as she blurted out that her own sister had also been married to John Smith and had also disappeared. Gary later recalled the haunting moment. The hair on the back of my neck literally stood up. I couldn't speak for several seconds. Dee Dee and her aunt then turned to the media, appearing on news magazine programs like A Current Affair and Hard Copy, in hopes of drawing public attention to Fran's disappearance. And their efforts worked. Soon reporters were following John Smith. Under the spotlight, he made several awkward remarks. He told one reporter, quote, "The feeling is one of disappointment. I would have hoped Fran would have been home by now." He suggested that Dee Dee and Sherry didn't know all the facts about Fran's disappearance, saying, "When you don't know what happened, you just have to look at all the angles." And when asked about the fact that both of his wives had gone missing, he brushed it off as one of those strange coincidences. Yeah, strange coincidence, John. Gary Hartman, Janice's brother, was also talking to the media. He told the Trentorian newspaper that John fit all the characteristics of a sociopath to a T. He lied pathologically, manipulated people, and showed little remorse or empathy. His co-workers, too, were relentless, teasing and pulling pranks on him, once leaving a mannequin covered in ketchup in his locker. Oh, man. We'll be back after a break.
The Wayne County, Ohio Sheriff's Department sits near Wooster, about 50 miles southwest of Cleveland. The small community, known for its fertile farmland and small-town charm, is home to the College of Wooster and has a vibrant downtown filled with shops, restaurants, and historic architecture. Surrounding Wooster are thriving Amish and Mennonite communities, which have been part of the area since the 19th century. Their presence has shaped Wayne County's agricultural heritage and cultural identity, giving the region a unique character that blends tradition with modern life. If you remember back at the beginning, I said that John was Mennonite, and I really wasn't able to find any more information about that, and
Okay.
I am curious as to how it shaped his upbringing.
Yeah.
But I really don't have any other information on that
Okay,
for you,
interesting,
sorry.
though.
In March 1992, Detective Brian Potts sat at his desk in Wooster when his phone rang. On the other end of the line was Detective Dansbury from the West Windsor Township Police Department inquiring about the investigation Wayne County had done into the disappearance of Janice Hartman Smith in November 1974. Potts dug up the police report, which described Janice as petite, pretty, blonde-haired, much like Fran. Both women were friendly and warm. Janice, the report continued, frequented several bars and was known to be boisterous. The following incident was included in the report. Complainant John Smith advised that he was with Janice at Sun Valley Bar on 11/17. Complainant advised that she was with another friend at the time, but he can't advise name. Only description is stocky man with mustache. Complainant advised his wife was to meet a John Richardson there at 2200 hours. Complainant then left Janice. Janice later took Kathy Paradon home. Kathy advised a man was with Janice at the time, but she did not know who the man was. Complainant advised that Janice must have returned home sometime on Monday, 11/18/74, in early morning hours as her car was back at lot 167 Melrose when he got up. He advised that he didn't think much about her not being there because he thought that someone had picked her up to take her into Worcester to file charges against Ron Paymer and several others. She has not been seen since taking Kathy Paradon home. Kathy advised mail and car when she went home was white male, dark hair, beard, medium build with a bad case of acne. County alert was given. To summarize, Janice Hartman's final night was clouded in uncertainty and conflicting accounts. Although her family believed she was divorced from John Smith, he claimed that she was still living with him in Worcester in a trailer park. On November 17, 1974, Janice and John were seen at the Sun Valley Bar in Doylestown, where she was also accompanied by an unidentified stocky man, possibly named John Richardson, that she was supposed to meet that night, but it was unclear. Later, she reportedly took her friend Kathy home, and this man accompanied her. He had a bushy mustache and bad acne, raising further questions about who she was really with. Investigators tried to track down Richardson, but a James Richardson in Doylestown denied involvement, again leaving it unclear whether he or someone else was with Janice. The next morning, John Smith found Jan's Mustang at his Worcester mobile home, but assumed that she was staying with a friend. Her disappearance was especially troubling because it occurred just before she was scheduled to file criminal charges against several men, suggesting a possible motive. Remember those men that had attacked her?
Right.
Conflicting witness accounts, questionable identifications, and references to other cases left investigators piecing together a confusing and mysterious timeline. Perhaps because she worked as a go-go dancer and spent time drinking in bars, law enforcement didn't put much effort into finding her. There was never a formal investigation into her disappearance. Her car and mobile home were never searched. No one was questioned until years later, not even the men who had attempted to sexually assault her.
That's really crazy. I thought maybe they didn't figure it out because there were a lot of potential culprits involved here, but it sounds like they didn't really do their job and do a thorough investigation at all.
Especially if she was working with them, it seemed like they would, have a lot of interest in helping to find her.
Right, exactly.
Betty, Janice's mother, was devastated by her daughter's disappearance. She relentlessly pressed law enforcement, reached out to the FBI, contacted her governor and senators, and even hired a private investigator. But despite her efforts, the trail went cold. Refusing to believe that Janice was dead, each year her mother still bought and wrapped birthday and Christmas presents for her. And as for John, he never followed up with Betty or the police to see how the investigation was going. In 1992, Betty was moved to erect a tombstone for her daughter in their family plot, 18 years after she vanished. I just felt like she needed a place. I wanted to show that she had passed through this world.
That is really heartbreaking.
It really is. I don't know how families go on when someone is missing.
Yeah, for 18 years,
yeah.
It's a long time.
After Janice disappeared, John moved back in with his grandparents and bought a flashy Mustang. By summer, he had landed a solid management job and started dating a woman named Sandy. Before long, the two were living together. He told Sandy how much he loved his first wife, but explained that she'd been killed after becoming addicted to drugs and owing her dealers money.
He told someone else that she joined a cult, right? Or a commune?
Yeah. But Detective Potts wasn't going to give up on Janice. Wayne County decided to reopen her case. Potts sent over 100 letters to every coroner and police station in Ohio, both big and small, seeking help in the investigation, although he didn't receive any promising leads.
So this reopening the investigation on Janice, this happened after Fran's disappearance?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure I have the timeline right.
So the New Jersey detectives came to Ohio to work together on their related cases. They started by interviewing John's family, who weren't much help. They weren't a close family. Many of them were estranged and didn't know that John had remarried. They hadn't even met Fran.
Mm-hmm.
Investigators were able to track down Kathy Paradon, who had been with Janice on the night that she went missing. She claimed that she didn't remember John Smith or much of that night. After traveling to Ohio, the New Jersey detectives felt confident that John Smith was involved in both of his wife's disappearances. In April 1992, they searched his condo, car, and office and asked him to come to the police station for an interview. Nothing of note was found in his condo, but 2 yellow suitcases that Fran's daughter had found were still there, and police thought that was significant, along with the full closet and drawers. Nothing seemed to be missing. When the police asked John for a photo of Fran, he'd originally claimed that she was camera shy and that he didn't have any photos of her. Now that they'd been inside of his condo, they realized that he had been lying. There was no shortage of pictures of Fran, a former model.
What a weird thing to lie about. Which is very strange.
John was questioned for 12 hours and submitted to a polygraph exam, which he failed. They questioned him about Janice. The detectives knew that Janice's Mustang had been found by John's mobile home, but he told them it had been found on the highway 100 miles from Seville with the doors opened. John was calm and unflappable during the interview, which was unsettling to the detectives. He displayed no emotion, never went to the bathroom, ate a bite of food, took a drink of water, or even removed his coat. Each time he told the story of what happened to his wives, it shifted slightly. He struck them as a compulsive liar and a master manipulator. After John was allowed to go home, Sheila, John's girlfriend, called him from Connecticut. Unbeknownst to John, law enforcement sat with her recording the call. Sheila told John that police had told her about Janice and showed her pictures. Who is she?
Janice Hartman was my first wife when I was 19 years old.
What happened to her?
Janice Hartman and I got divorced. I left the area. I have not seen Janice since I left, and I reported her missing. I found out today that in all these years that she's never been found and that she was legally declared dead. That's it. Point blank, simple facts.
Do you know her family?
No, I don't know her family, and no, I haven't talked to her family.
How could you not talk to her family?
We were divorced. I thought that she was headed her way and I headed my way. I mean, I didn't know she was missing all these years, you know?
How could you not know that she was missing? Did anyone, no one told you that she was missing?
No one told me she was missing all this time. I thought she was back with her family by now. I hadn't maintained any contact. I didn't know it. I didn't know. I didn't know that. I didn't know that she was still missing all this time until today. I didn't know that she was still gone until today. I didn't know that she was declared legally dead until today.
Well, let's get real simple here.
Okay.
I mean real simple.
Okay.
Let's just start with honesty, right? You've got to start with honesty. You've just got to lay it on the line.
I have started with honesty.
Here you are in your condo. Everything is just falling to pieces because you're lying to everyone around you.
That's correct.
Okay, so the officers now had John lying on tape, and while it was progress, it wasn't enough. There still wasn't any evidence tying him directly to Janice's disappearance.
John is just so weird.
Very...
Trying to get in his head there really has messed with me.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to ask you to do it again later, too.
John grew tired of the attention and accusations in New Jersey, quit his job, and moved to Connecticut to his little house. Sheila had broken things off with him and moved out. John met a sex worker named Janice Miller who lived with him for a short time. After that relationship ended, John moved to New Hampshire and worked for a company that made labels and began dating a coworker briefly before he returned to Ohio in early 1994 to help his mother run the family real estate business after his stepfather's death. The business was very successful, worth almost $30 million. John got into legal trouble in 1997 when, after a car accident, he provided law enforcement with a false Social Security number. His driver's license was suspended, but he had continued to drive. Detectives seized the opportunity and pulled him over and hauled him in for questioning again in the disappearances of the two Mrs. Smiths. Again, the Ohio and New Jersey detectives worked together. They kept Smith there for 10 hours, but in the 5 years since they had last questioned him, there had been no new evidence, and John was still slippery. They let him go, frustrated that they still didn't have enough probable cause for arrest. Soon after, John Smith disappeared from Ohio, and law enforcement lost track of him for a couple of years.
So this is the benefit of having the name John Smith. He was able to, fly under the radar or move to a different area, and they couldn't track him down.
Yeah, I can imagine. The disappearances of Janice and Fran Smith haunted Detective Michael Dansbury of the West Windsor Police Department. He was convinced John had been involved in both of his wives' vanishings and was determined to prove it. Enter Bob Hilland. After 7 years with the West Windsor Township Police, Hilland moved to the FBI's New York office in 1997. Early in his career, back when he was still a rookie patrolman, he had looked John Smith in the eye, and he had never forgotten the unsettling interaction. Years later, while catching up with Dansbury one afternoon, their conversation turned to his frustration over Smith's unknown whereabouts. Hilland, now part of the FBI's cold case homicide unit, thought he might be able to help. His superiors told him he would have to pursue the case on his own time, and he agreed. With that, he set out to re-examine the evidence, determined to bring a fresh set of eyes to the investigation, and he started from scratch. Bob worked with the FBI's profilers to better understand Smith. He used every resource at his hand to pinpoint John's location. Tracking down a man named John Smith wasn't easy, but investigators eventually located him near San Diego, working at a high-end Italian auto customization company called La Forza, where he was part owner. Bob found that John was renting a room from a coworker and dating a woman named Diane, whom he went on to marry in September 1998. She later told the FBI that John was very secretive about his past. She only knew that he had a wife who had died of cancer. John kept a large photo of Fran in their house.
Isn't that weird?
That is very weird. A neighbor in the apartment complex where Diane and John lived told the Akron Beacon Journal that John was unfriendly. Quote, "He stayed to himself. He didn't talk to anyone. He was weird. He never went to the mailbox. And he always drove fancy cars. Ferrari, Maserati. They seemed like the perfect couple. She didn't say much either. I guess you can go into any neighborhood, no matter how nice, and people have their own little secrets." Because John Smith had lived in at least 6 different states, the FBI began to wonder if Janice and Fran weren't his only victims. He certainly seemed to have a way with women and was never single for long. Could they have a serial killer on their hands? I was kind of wondering that myself. On May 5th, 1999, 25 FBI agents and detectives quietly fanned out across the country to interview people from John's past, ex-girlfriends, friends, relatives, acquaintances, while preparing to question John himself. The timing was deliberate. They didn't want word getting back to him. Among those interviewed was his brother Michael, whom agents believed knew more than he had admitted previously. John agreed to come in for an interview. It took place at a nondescript Holiday Inn Express. John again didn't request a lawyer. As the interview began, Agent Hilland showed him a photo, John in the center, surrounded by the 25 people being questioned that same day, spokes radiating out like a wheel. Hilland told John they were all being interviewed simultaneously. As the implication sank in, John shifted uneasily. His typical composure faltered. When agents pressed him on every crack in his story about his missing wives, the weight of it finally broke him. "My life is a nightmare. I'm tired of living this nightmare. I want the nightmare to end." Those words were music to the agents' ears. They could feel a confession coming. But soon, John's demeanor shifted again. He began to cry, complaining of an excruciating headache, and asked for a leave. While one agent ran to a nearby pharmacy to get the pain reliever, John sat rocking back and forth in the fetal position under a blanket on the couch. Moments later, he said he wanted to go to the hospital. He thought he was having a heart attack. The medical emergency cut the moment short, abruptly ending what agents believe was nearly a confession. When EMTs arrived, they found no heart problem, but they needed to bring him to the hospital to be sure. As he was being wheeled out on a gurney, he winked at Agent Hilland. Oh.
Can you imagine?
Oh, Agent Hilland must have been ready to choke him.
I think he really wanted to.
Meanwhile, in Ohio, agents questioned John's younger brother, Michael. He worked as a handyman for some of his mother's rental properties and carried a quiet resentment toward John, who had always been the favored son. Investigators knew Michael had once warned female tenants to stay away from his brother, calling John dangerous, but when pressed, he denied ever saying it. They also interviewed John's new wife, Diane. She was stunned to discover that her husband had been married twice before and that both of those wives had vanished under suspicious circumstances. I can't even imagine that feeling, like finding out you're married to someone who had 2 wives disappear suspiciously.
Yeah, poor Diane.
Yeah, well, lucky Diane.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks after his meeting with the FBI, guilt began to gnaw at Michael Smith. Janice haunted his dreams, appearing again and again in nightmares that he couldn't shake. Finally, he decided he couldn't stay silent any longer. He had to tell authorities what he knew. He recalled to investigators that in 1974, before the Ohio State-Michigan game, John had asked him to load bags of women's clothing into his van. They drove to their grandparents' house where Michael settled in to watch the game while John disappeared into the garage. At halftime, curiosity got the better of him, and he went to check on his brother. John was crafting a crude box made out of plywood, an oblong box about 1.5 feet wide and 4 feet long. He said it was for Janice's belongings, but Michael thought the box was too long and skinny to be of much use. John told him that Jan had been working as a drug informant and was going into a witness protection program. Michael said that John was emotional while building the box, even shedding a tear. John filled the box with Janice's clothing and stored it in his grandparents' rarely used garage for 5 years, until one day in 1979 when Chester called Michael in a panic and asked him to come over. Together they pried the lid off of the box. Inside they found women's clothing, bones, and what appeared to be hair that Michael described as rainbow in color. Poking around the box, a skull with skin stretched over it like a mummy looked back at them. Michael said it was undeniably Janice's face.
Although investigators said that this was not possible, I'll explain when we get to the end.
Okay. Michael told his grandfather that they had to call the police. Ethel and Chester were both in failing health, with Ethel recovering from a recent heart attack. Chester asked Michael not to call the police. It was a brutal decision. Michael said, "I did not want to kill my grandmother. Unfortunately, there was nothing I could do for her, the person in the box. I did not want to kill my grandmother." Chester ordered Michael to call his brother with a warning. Come get the box and never set foot in his house or contact him again. He had kept John's secret, but it came at a price. In Hammond, Indiana, John got the message and tore off toward the house in his sleek new black Corvette with the T-tops removed. During the drive, he had had enough time to conjure a tale to tell his grandfather and Michael. John told them that 2 men, allegedly an FBI agent and a Wayne County Sheriff's deputy, had drugged him or knocked him out. When he regained consciousness, he claimed he was in a warehouse with Janice dead beside him while the men laughed, saying they would frame him for murder. He said he was knocked out again and later woke in a trailer in Wooster, Ohio, still with Janice's body, which he then put in his van and drove away just as a sheriff's car arrived. Well, that seems like a perfectly plausible story to me.
So he can lie just as easily as he breathes.
Yeah. Michael admitted he wanted to believe his brother's story, no matter how outrageous, because of their bond as brothers. He struggled between accepting the bizarre tale or facing the possibility that his brother had killed Janice, whom he had genuinely loved. John loaded the box into his Corvette. It was a tight fit. They never spoke of it again, although his relationship with his family was forever changed. One last detail Michael provided to police was that one of the properties he helped his family manage, a complex called Grace Lane Apartments, was constructing garages in 1979. He had mentioned to John that concrete would be poured the next day, and that might be a good way to dispose of Janice's remains. Finally, 25 years after Janice's disappearance, Michael Smith had unburdened his soul and provided law enforcement with information that could finally put John behind bars, but there was still no evidence to back up his outlandish story. The next day, a reliable search dog named Eagle went to the Grace Lane Apartments and promptly alerted on one particular garage floor. A large slab of the garage floor was removed. With small hand tools and screens, the dirt beneath was searched for human remains. Fragments from 2 teeth were found, a canine and an incisor, but nothing more. When mitochondrial DNA from the found teeth was compared to that of Janice's mother, there was no match. Where did the teeth come from? Could it have been another victim of John Smith's?
You might be wondering, well, could they have been Fran's teeth? But the timeline was not right. The garage had been built. The cement had been poured before Fran had disappeared.
Gotcha. Later, investigators searched John's grandparents' house and garage once more. No physical evidence was uncovered, but a scent dog alerted in the garage, right where the box had sat for years.
So the dog was probably alerting just on the smell of death that had been there because that box had been in the garage, not because there were any remains there.
Right, makes sense. We'll be back after a break.
Nervous that he may be charged as an accomplice, Michael Smith agreed to cooperate with the FBI and allow his phone conversations with John to be recorded. Here is one conversation from June 1999. There's one thing I've got to ask you, and I've never, ever wanted to discuss this with you again, John.
Okay.
The box in Granddad's...
Yeah, the goat. Yeah, what about it?
It's nowhere around Seville, is it?
No, the goat isn't anywhere near Seville.
Okay. After the first call didn't give them much incriminating information, law enforcement wanted Michael to be more aggressive on the next call and tell John that he'd been summoned to appear before a grand jury. But also the goat.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's trying to, make it sound like someone left a goat
Right.
as a joke.
Yeah, and he put it in a box in his dad's garage.
As one
right.
would never do. I'm going there to New York and I'm going to tell them the truth. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell them that we seen you build a box. Granddad and I opened the box. We found Jan in it. That's what I'm going to do. I cannot see another way out of this. I'm not going to go to jail for you, John.
No, I wouldn't expect you to, okay?
There's just no way around it.
Okay.
Unless you got some idea.
No, I don't have any idea.
Unless there's some kind of something.
No, there isn't. I mean, that wasn't, I don't know what else to tell you. That was a joke or something that somebody dropped off in the box. That wasn't Jan in it. But if that's what you believe.
John, that was Jan in the box. We opened the box up. Her fucking legs were cut off. Do you want me to continue?
No. Anyway, all right. So you're going to New York on August 5th, huh?
Yeah, and here's the best part.
Okay.
I get to do a polygraph test the next day.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So I'm not going to lie.
No, I don't expect you to.
So that wasn't true. Michael was just trying to get John to admit to something. The next day, Friday, July 23rd, 1999, John disappeared. His wife Diane called the FBI. They moved Michael and his wife to a hotel for safety, but by Monday, John resurfaced, looking dirty, rumpled, and unshaven, with a large cut on his forehead. He told his wife that the FBI had locked him into a room all weekend and wouldn't let him leave. Of course, this wasn't true. We don't know where he was or what he was doing. Possibly he was burying another body. The prosecutor weighed taking the case to a grand jury, but with no bodies and no forensic evidence, they chose to wait in hopes that new evidence would surface. Remember Dee Dee and Sherry?
I do.
They warned Diane about her new husband, and they even hired a private detective to follow John, trying to keep her safe. Soon after, Diane discovered photos of John with other women, pictures that looked romantic. She handed them over to the FBI. Agent Hilland met with her and warned her, too, of how dangerous John Smith could be, especially if she tried to leave him. By December, Diane filed for an annulment. In the filing, she wrote that she had a very brief dating relationship with John before getting married, and that after their marriage, she learned that he was an accomplished liar, and although he exhibits a gentle face, he has an explosive temper. Among the lies that he had told her was that he had been married to Fran for 7 years, when in fact it had only been 17 months. Fearing for her safety, Diane changed the locks, got a new phone number, and had her daughter move in with her for protection. But John's temper was relentless. One night he broke into the house in a blind rage. The fury only subsided when he suddenly came face to face with Diane's daughter, Summer. In that brief pause, Diane managed to call the police. Soon after, she secured a restraining order against him. Sensing a breakthrough was near, Detective Brian Potts set out another round of letters similar to the one that he had written in 1992. But this time, he focused on Indiana's Jane Doe cases. Last time he sent the letters to Ohio.
Oh, right.
He wrote, "Dear Sirs, I am Detective Sergeant Brian Potts with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office in Wooster, Ohio, investigating the 1974 disappearance of Janice Hartman Smith. She was last seen after her divorce from John David Smith, who later reported another wife missing in 1991 in New Jersey. Information suggests that Janice's body was preserved, placed in a plywood box, and hidden in a garage. In 1979, the box was discovered by family members. John later removed it and claimed to have dumped it in a field. We are asking all Indiana coroners and sheriffs to review records of unidentified Jane Does from 1978 to 1980. Janice was a white female, 5'4", 115 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes, date of birth 3/2/1951, age 23 at disappearance. Sincerely, Brian Potts. Sherry assisted with the letter-writing campaign. By then, the families of Fran and Janice had become united in their grief, leaning on one another for strength and support, both determined to find their loved ones and get justice. When the letter crossed Detective Jerry Berman's desk later that month, his jaw dropped. Whether it was fate or good luck, Berman had been among the officers called to the scene along Hopkins Park Road some 20 years earlier. He'd never forgotten the plywood box filled with a young woman's possessions and skeletal remains, coined the Lady in the Box by local media. Her remains were partially buried in a Pottersfield section of a cemetery in Morocco, Indiana in 1980. Her skull and a few bones had not been buried, but kept in evidence in hopes her identity would someday be revealed. On March 2nd, Janice Hartman's birthday, the Lady in the Box was exhumed and taken to Toledo for examination by a forensic anthropologist. The bones were found to be from a petite female in her early 20s. There was no determinate cause of death. Remember, the Lady in the Box's leg bones were cut, maybe by a circular saw because of the precise cuts. Well, further examination revealed that the cuts were likely made by a serrated knife, which would have just taken so much force and time. After 6 weeks, the FBI confirmed the Lady in the Box to be Janice Hartman by matching DNA from the femur found in the box to that of her mother, Betty.
Wow.
Finally, prosecutor Jocelyn Stephenson felt like there was enough evidence for a grand jury to hear the case. On August 25, 2000, the grand jury in Wayne County, Ohio, voted to indict John David Smith for aggravated murder, facing up to 20 years in prison, which was the maximum sentence in 1974. On Tuesday, October 3, 2000, John, 49, was arrested without incident and taken into custody at the San Diego County Jail. Detective Brian Potts flew to California to accompany Smith back to Ohio. On the flight, Smith didn't speak a word. When they landed, he was taken to the Worcester jail to await his first court appearance. Sherry told Dateline that a detective called her from the jail. "I have something you might want to hear," he said as he slammed the door on John's cell. "We did it," he said. At his arraignment a week later, Sherry, Fran's sister, was there to look John in the eye. He pleaded not guilty. Bail was denied, and the trial was set for January 2001. Sherry told the Beacon Journal, "I wanted him to see me sitting there when he walked into court. I wanted him to know I'm not going anyplace until I know where my sister is. I'm just glad a body was found to at least get this far. One down, one to go. He has let it be known that he despises me more than anyone else in the world because of everything my family has done to make his life miserable for the last 9 years." After John was arrested in 2000, law enforcement was not satisfied with their case against him. They continued to search for more evidence. Once again, they hired Eagle, the scent dog, to search a storage unit that belonged to John. Eagle alerted. He found 3 small pieces of human skull. They did not belong to Janice or Fran.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. The original trial date was postponed several times due to pretrial motions. One motion forbade mention of Betty Fran or her disappearance. The trial began in July 2001.
Isn't that so frustrating when that evidence is excluded?
I know, it seems awfully relevant to me. So it's a pattern, right?
Yeah.
The jury, 9 women and 3 men, filed into the cramped courtroom, their faces set with quiet determination. The room buzzed with reporters and curious onlookers, eager to witness the trial of John Smith. At the defense table, John, now 50 years old, sat stone-faced, his expression unreadable, betraying nothing as the proceedings unfolded around him. The prosecution portrayed John as a controlling husband with anger issues who snapped when his wife sought a divorce. Though he was first drawn to her fun, rebellious spirit, once married, he tried to quash it. The defense tried to shift blame onto Janice, arguing that her job as a go-go dancer and her drinking and drug use made her a target. The prosecution suffered a setback when key witness Kathy Paradon had an anxiety attack just before taking the stand. A close friend of Janice, Kathy had been with her on the last night of her life. Janice had even driven her home. Back in 1974, Kathy reported that a man with a bushy mustache and severe acne was in the car with Janice when she got out. She had also witnessed John slap Janice. But overwhelmed and unable to testify, Kathy was removed from the witness list. I think you mentioned earlier that she said she couldn't even remember much of that night anyway, so it seems like, I'm not sure how good of a witness she would have been regardless.
Well, she was going to testify that she had made that story up.
Oh, okay.
And that there was not a bushy man.
Okay.
Not a bushy man, but a man with a bushy mustache.
Gotcha. A week into the trial, Michael Smith took the stand with prosecutorial immunity. The night before, his mother had allegedly begged him not to testify against his brother, but Michael was determined to right his past wrongs. The defense attacked his credibility, highlighting his lies, half-truths, and even his mistake about the weekend he saw John building the wooden box. But the prosecution countered effectively, arguing that the timing didn't matter. What mattered was that he had seen his brother make the box. The box, by the way, sat in the courtroom every day of the trial.
That box sitting there in the courtroom must have been jarring.
Yeah, that would be...
Showed, what a monster John was.
Yeah, I think that would be a very effective prop to have in the trial. Another witness testified that John used to wear a lady's diamond watch to work, and coworkers often made fun of him for it. The watch was significant because John had given Janice a diamond watch as a gift and claimed that she had been wearing it when she disappeared. It took 27 years to finally bring John Smith to trial, yet the proceedings lasted less than 2 weeks. Over the course of 27 witnesses, no murder weapon was produced, and no forensic evidence linking John to Janice's body was ever found. The most devastating blow came from John's own brother, though the defense fought hard to discredit him as unreliable. It took the jury about 8 hours to reach their decision. After their initial vote, 5 jurors voted to acquit him, but they eventually agreed and found John Smith not guilty of aggravated murder, but guilty of murder. You had me scared right there as I was reading that sentence. Smith sat stone-faced. The jury later said the most convincing testimony was that of Michael Smith.
If Michael hadn't come forward, I really don't think they had a case.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. During sentencing, Gary Hartman addressed the judge. The prosecution's done an excellent job. My mother, even my father, may forgive John for what he's done, but my brother, my sister, and I will never forgive you for what you've done. You kill women in your life that you loved, and that's very hard to understand. I'll say one other thing about Michael's testimony. The family will forgive Michael. We hope that his nightmares go away and that you receive them. Fran's sister Sherry spoke. As a family, we have proved to be a force to be reckoned with. For the past 2.5 weeks, Janice has spoken in this courtroom, and through these proceedings, Janice has found justice for herself and her family. Fran has not spoken yet, but we as a family will continue our efforts to give Fran's memory the justice it deserves. With the help of authorities, this family has tracked you for 9 years, 9 months, 18 days to get to this day. But this is not over for our family. We are not going away until you tell us what you did with my sister's body after you killed her. I promised my mother on her deathbed that I would find my sister. I will, to my last dollar, my last breath, work to fulfill that promise. Finally, the judge passed down his sentence. You are sentenced to a 15-year to life term. I can't speak for the parole board, but I'm confident that you will serve the rest of your life in an Ohio prison. And it's not going to happen today, but maybe someday you will do the right thing and respond to the questions of these people. You can't overcome, you can't change the bad that you've done, but since you are going to be living, albeit in prison, you do have the opportunity to do good and to answer their questions, and I would hope that you would take that to heart. Even John's third wife wanted to help get justice for Fran and Janice. After the trial, she went to the prison and looked John squarely in the face and asked him where Fran's body was. I'm innocent, he responded.
The way these people bonded together to get justice just is so touching to me.
It's really moving. Yeah, it is.
John Smith came close to winning an appeal. The jury had mistakenly been given access to State's Exhibit Number 48, a document referencing the disappearance of Betty Fran Smith. It was a clear prosecutorial error, but the judge ultimately ruled that the information hadn't influenced the jury. Remember, Fran wasn't supposed to be mentioned at all.
Right.
Just the fact that this document had, her name could have been enough to, change the
I'm glad it wasn't.
Yeah. In October 2001, Sherry and Dee Dee sued John Smith for the wrongful death of Fran. The judge found in their favor and awarded them $1 million, which, of course, they will never receive a
Right.
penny of. In 2019, a New Jersey grand jury indicted John Smith for Fran's murder 30 years after she vanished. When it was ruled that evidence related to John's murder of Janice Hartman Smith would be excluded, the prosecutors decided to offer John a plea deal. If he gave up the location of Fran's body, they'd offered him immunity. He accepted. Under the terms of the plea deal, he didn't have to divulge why, how, or even if he murdered Fran. He claimed that he wrapped her body in a blanket and threw her into the dumpster at Carborundum, where he worked at the time. Sherry, Dee Dee, and Robert Hilland were all crushed by this decision. The prosecutor defended their decision. Without being able to use the evidence of Janice's murder, they really had no case. They wanted to bring closure to Fran's family, and this was their best option.
Wow.
Diane, John's third wife, told the San Diego Union-Tribune that she married him for financial stability and had no idea about the first two Mrs. Smiths. I never loved him. The marriage was a farce. I would never have married him had I known. Their marriage was annulled in July 2001, but Diane is one of the few people who maintained a relationship with John once he was in jail, calling him and writing to him.
That's surprising.
Today, John Smith remains imprisoned in Ohio with his earliest chance of parole in 2029 when he will be 78 years old. Fran's remains have never been recovered.
Oh, that's so sad.
And oddly, like Janice's feet, whatever happened to her legs and her feet, they've never been recovered either.
So strange.
Rest in peace to Janice Hartman Smith and Betty Fran Gladden-Smith. Their lives were tragically cut short, leaving behind grieving families who never stopped searching for the truth. May their memories live on, not in the shadows of how they were lost, but in the love and light that they brought to those who knew them. Never stop looking, believing, and hoping. There's always someone out there who knows something. Remember when Michael Smith said that he saw Janice's face in the box?
Right.
What investigators think he saw was there was a bunch of clothing in there, and one of them was like a filmy nightgown that was a multicolored nightgown, and it was placed like over her face.
Okay.
And over, the time that it was over her face, like the Shroud of Turin, like her face was
gotten kind of like molded to her face. Okay.
Yeah, and the multicolored hair. I think that maybe some of the dye had leached out from the clothing onto her hair.
Okay.
So it wasn't that he was wrong. It was just that's what he saw.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting. So I have a question for you about a couple of other things that we talked about earlier that I don't think ever got resolved. So there were teeth found under the garage of one of their rental units, and I think there was pieces of a skull found in a storage unit too. Were those ever identified of who they belonged to?
No, they weren't.
Wow.
It's disturbing, isn't it?
Yeah. So,
and we don't know where he was, all these times, and it's possible that, there are more victims.
Yeah. Wow. That's really, really disturbing.
I just wanted to talk about the family and how amazing are, these people who, didn't give up finding their loved ones and working together. And it's just,
it's really
so moving to me. How do you think John got so many women?
I have no idea. I was wondering that throughout the whole thing because he didn't. I mean, the pictures you showed me didn't really seem like that much of a looker. He seemed like a very odd guy, like just very weird. So I don't know.
So some of the girlfriends that he had said that he was like very loyal and devoted and very sincere, like in their one-on-one relationships with him.
Okay.
That they really felt like he was earnest and meant everything that he said to them.
Okay, yeah, it seems like he was a good manipulator.
Why do you think Janice's legs were cut the way that they were?
I don't know. It's really weird to fit into the box or something, maybe. I
wondered if that was possible, but gosh, that would have been such like just a gruesome, tedious task to like saw away with a serrated knife. And the reason they thought it was a serrated knife was just serrated knife, just the way that the cuts looked.
Yeah, it's such a bizarre thing to do. I can't imagine.
Well, the prosecutor in the case, I don't want to take credit for saying this, but at the trial, she said that he cut the legs off so she could never walk out on him again. Because he really, and Fran was probably plotting to leave him too.
Yeah.
And he really hated the idea of anyone leaving him.
Wow. Yeah. Whatever the reason, that's a really creepy thing to do.
We talked about Eagle, the scent dog, a few times in this story, and
Mhm.
Eagle sounds like definitely at the top of his game. He was like one of those dogs that police really, really trusted.
Sounds like a good boy.
Definitely a good boy. Yeah. I just want to shout out to dogs.
I mean, police dogs and scent dogs, cadaver dogs, they are
They're
amazing.
amazing. I think I have given scent dogs a hard time sometimes because they don't always work out,
Yeah.
great, but Eagle was, really a superstar.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did a little bit of research about scent dogs. All cadaver dogs are scent dogs, but not all scent dogs are trained to detect human remains. They're kind of
Gotcha.
two different skills, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
I do want to name my sources. The main source that I use for this case is a book called The Stranger in My Bed, The True Story of Marriage, Murder, and the Body in the Box by Michael Fleeman, written in 2003. It was a good book, a lot of great information. Just on September 2nd, Robert Hilland wrote a book called Chasing Evil.
Wow.
And because I was halfway done with the case, I didn't read his book. It sounds really interesting. But he wrote it with John Edward. Do you know who that is?
No.
He's a psychic.
Oh, interesting.
So I just want to take a minute to. Oh, and the other book I read probably a third of was written by Sherry Gladden Davis, Fran's sister. It's called My Sister is Missing, Bring a Killer to Justice. The book I don't think is in print anymore. I will link this in show notes. I was able to find it on archive.org, and I will put that in the show notes. It was definitely interesting to hear her account. I wanted to talk about Robert Hillen and John Edwards' book a little bit. Like I said, it was just released on September 2nd. They co-authored it about their 25-year relationship, and it's called Chasing Evil. John Edward is a well-known psychic medium. Hilland claims that over the years he has leaned on Edward for help in solving cases. Here's an excerpt from the book related to the John Smith case. It was the first time the men had met. Hilland was a huge skeptic. I'm seeing a woman. She looks older than her actual age. She's crossed over. She has two names, like Mary Ann, Barbara Ann, but people call her by the second name. There's an F, like Fern or Fran. Wait, it's Fran. She was vain about her appearance. She had breast implants. They're showing me serial numbers on them and dyed blonde hair, blue eyes. She wore a lot of makeup. Fran was a smoker. I smell cigarette smoke and strong perfume, like when a person tries to cover up the smoke scent with a lot of perfume. She's also showing me that she couldn't walk, like she broke her leg. She's showing me crutches. I feel a strong pain in the back of my head. Was she struck in the head? Yes, she was hit in the back of the head with something. She didn't see it coming. Weird. I felt like she was tricked into going somewhere by someone she trusted, a boyfriend or a husband. He is still here. He hasn't crossed. He has a simple name, a J name, like John or Jim or Joe, and a second name, S, very common, like Smith. I shivered. This was unreal. John put down the glasses and picked up the hairbrush. After she was hit in the head, the J.S. name, let's call him Smith, strangled her to make sure she was dead. Not like a bloodbath or anything. It was like he knocked her out with one blow, then strangled her. He was much younger than her, John continued, maybe 10 years. She was angry. Was there another woman? She thought there was another woman, but not in the same state they were living. She's showing me stairs. They were upstairs on a third floor, if not higher. There was an argument. She confronted him about a bunch of things, not just one issue. Feels like a whole bunch of different things. Smith was lying to her, and she knew it. She called him out. He felt like his worlds were crashing together. So that's kind of wild. I don't know how much I believe in that.
Yeah. Call me a skeptic, but okay.
Right. No, I totally understand being a skeptic. But Robert Hilland, like if you see him in person and you hear him speak, he's like the most serious, like FBI guy that you can see. And
Yeah.
I just think it's really interesting that these two men have had a 25-year relationship,
Yeah.
and Hilland feels like Edward has helped him solve a lot of cases. And I know what you're thinking. Well, if he has solved so many cases, where are Fran's remains? Edward thinks that Fran was dismembered and possibly put in a storm sewer.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So I was going to actually ask you about the deal that they made where he said that he had put her body in the dumpster at his workplace, which was, I mean, it was disappointing because they never actually found her body. So do you think he was like lying about that, or do you think that they just never found her body because it was then taken to a landfill or something and just no way
Yeah,
to
I think
find
that's
it.
a really good question. And the investigators believe that he was lying because they said that, it was an open air dumpsters. Dumpsters are a lot different today, especially in, industrial
Yeah.
settings. But it was just an open air dumpster. And they just don't think that he would have just thrown her body in there.
Yeah. Interesting.
And remember, like at the end of the episode when we were talking about how he disappeared for a few days and he came back looking like really dirty and disheveled.
Mm-hmm.
And they believe that he probably was burying another body during that time.
Wow. It's John Edwards, the psychic. I've heard of him. Like he used to
Oh,
have
he's very well known. Yeah, I think he had
TV
a
commercials
TV
or
show.
something. Yeah.
I think he's worked with a lot of investigators. Try to find more information about cases in which, a psychic has actually helped solve a case.
Yeah.
It's
I haven't heard of any either. I've heard of quite a few where they've gotten involved, but
I
nothing.
can understand the allure of it. Like
Yeah.
we need help and
Right.
we're gonna, take every opportunity that we can.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that is the story of John Smith.
Wow. Fascinating story. And what a horrible guy.
Yeah. I forgot to mention this at the top. I'm so glad I'm remembering it now. I want to say thank you to our Patreon member, Meredith, for suggesting this case a long time ago. I failed to put it in our spreadsheet. I found it serendipitously when I was going through email. So I really hope that you're hearing this, Meredith. Thank you so much. Very interesting case. Oh, before we go to, there's one more thing I wanted to mention. There's always one more thing.
Always
isn't
one
there?
more thing we do.
The Dateline episode that I watched was really good. We are trying to be more careful about which clips we use and not stealing anyone's clips. There's a lot of like the conversation between John and Michael is in that episode, as well as I think the conversation between Sheila and John.
Oh, interesting.
It was a really good episode.
But we recreated a lot of that perfectly, I'm guessing.
Right, I know. Why would you want to listen to the actual audio when
Right.
you have our amazing recreations? But a lot of times Dateline episodes are hard to find, and I probably shouldn't even mention this because it's probably going to be gone, but it'll be on show notes. It was on YouTube, and that was a gift because a lot of times we aren't able to find older episodes.
Cool.
All right. Well, that was a lot.
That was a lot.
You are a little distracted. How dare you? You're looking at sports scores.
Well,
I see you over there.
So listen, I warned you this time of year is a busy time for me, and sometimes I have to multitask.
Well, I'm proud of you. During this case, we talked about Ohio quite a lot.
Yeah.
And
there was even a Michigan-Ohio football game reference.
Yeah. I try to put Michigan in every case if I can. But that was an interesting point, too, that they were talking about. I didn't really talk about this, but they said that Michael had the wrong weekend because when is the Ohio State-Michigan game every year?
It's right near Thanksgiving and
it's
end of
always,
November.
Yeah, and he had said something about he gave the wrong weekend, but it was, easily proven. But it didn't matter because, you know, that's still when it happened. But you didn't say anything derogatory about Ohio, and for that, I
tried
applaud you.
really hard.
Yeah.
I know we have listeners that are in
We have
Columbus.
beloved listeners from Ohio. We have a lot of, but in general, people in Michigan and Ohio, we don't really get along. Especially when you talk about University of Michigan and
when it comes to football, though,
one of the great rivalries in college football, I believe.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so this episode is going to drop a couple of days before our third podcast anniversary. 3 years we've been podcasting.
It's so hard to believe.
Can you believe it?
No, I really can't believe it.
I feel like we're going to have the same exact conversation that we had a year ago. So I apologize if you have just listened to one of those episodes where we talk about our anniversary.
I was going to say, I've forgotten what that conversation was all about, and hopefully most other people have too.
Did you think that we would make it 3 years?
Hell no. No.
Do you think we'll make it another 3 years?
Oh gosh, I don't know. 3 more years is...
That's a lot.
I don't know. I really don't know. I wouldn't have thought we had made this far, so...
Yeah, who knows?
Maybe.
Who knows? Maybe we'll just keep going for another 25 years.
Another decade, 2 decades, yeah, why not?
Well, one thing I know for sure is that we would not be podcasting. Oh gosh, I'm going to get emotional. If you guys weren't listening. We've had so much support and love along the way, and we are just so grateful. I think sometimes we talk about it too much, but it still amazes us that people like what we're doing, that they can tell that we're nice people, because we really are just like an average nice couple next door. There's nothing really super special about us, but we just appreciate your support so much.
We do. And when we started it, I think we had like 100 listens on our first episode or something like that.
No, I remember the first day.
The first day
We had 17. And I was like,
Yeah.
that was just like exceeded our expectations.
Yeah.
Even by having 17. And now, we're still a small podcast, but we get thousands of downloads every day. And, we started, with 17. It's just remarkable.
I was just going to say, I don't think we definitely would not have kept doing this. We enjoy doing it. Like, I think it's really fun for us to have something that we do together, but we definitely would not have kept doing it unless
people were listening,
unless
and
people were enjoying
us.
it and really liking what we were doing. So it really is very, it makes me really emotional to think about it.
All right. Favorite episode?
I have a really hard time with this because I forget so many episodes that we've done, but the one that I always come back to is the Carrie Farver, Liz Gallier, Dave Krupa. I think I got those names right. That episode was just bananas. It's just one of the craziest episodes I think that I can remember. How about you?
That's really hard to answer. I think the favorite thing about doing the podcast for me is the connection I feel to the cases.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. And like the case that you just did last week, I could tell how emotionally connected you were.
That one is going to stick with me for a long time. That's the Jason Corbett case.
Yeah. That's how I feel about several of them. I think because it's recent, I really did love the Betty Broderick case.
Yeah.
And one of my probably most emotional case is the Hart family. I just, I'll never forget those little kids.
Well, yeah, when we do cases that involve children, those are always really, really tough.
Yeah, I'm looking back at the cases we did this year. The Phil Hartman case, I really enjoyed doing that one because we got to play so many funny clips. But yeah, I mean, we really do enjoy doing the podcast. We hope that we can keep doing it. And again, I mean, you guys, we love you like family, and we're just so grateful.
Yeah.
We know that not everyone wants to or can be a Patreon member, and that's totally okay. Other ways that you can support our podcast, and you guys are really doing a great job supporting us on social media, engaging with our content, leaving messages, leaving comments, and the Reddit comments. Oh my gosh, those are just so...
Yeah. It really helps us so much when people are hearing from other listeners that they recommend this podcast, because we can go out all we want and tout our own podcast, but
we don't really do that.
No, we don't do that, first of all. And even if we did, it wouldn't really mean a lot. But when you all comment on Reddit or Facebook or wherever and recommend us to people,
it helps a lot of new people find us.
Yeah.
Well, before we end this, I want to give a sincere thank you to you for all the work that you do and your support and encouragement. And I'm not always the easiest.
Oh, well.
So I'm really proud of both of us, but I love you and I'm thankful for you. And
right back
well done, Rich.
You put a lot into this podcast of your heart and soul, and I really appreciate having you as a partner in this effort. So yeah, thank you as well. I love you.
I love you too. Until next time.
Don't kill your wife.
Don't kill your husband.